Hello and welcome to Easy Piecy Quilts. Today we're going to make a pattern called Pocket Full of Posies. This quilt is an awesome beginner quilt. It is applique, so the piecing is basically just putting the blocks together, which makes it really easy. But there are several ways that you can apply the applique. Each way will make the quilt top look a little bit different, and so you can choose which way you would like your quilt to look. This quilt is very easy to size into different quilt top sizes. Just add blocks, subtract blocks. You could even make a small table topper for spring. So let's get started making Pocket Full of Posies. This pattern is written to be 10 by 10 inch layer cake friendly as well as fat quarter friendly. This is the fat quarter that I used for the quilt that is behind me on the intro, Bundle Up Floralism, and I will link these down below because we have this fabric available on our website. You should be able to get 5 flowers per fat quarter and 1 flower per layer cake. But Heat and Bond only comes in 17-inch wide strips. So a fat quarter is 18 inches, obviously. So you'll have to put in a little strip, cut some extra little 1-inch strips and adhere the Heat and Bond to the back that way. So you've covered your entire fat quarter with Heat and Bond. This is one way that we can attach these flowers to our project. So here is a 10 by 10 inch square that I've cut, and let me show you how to adhere this Heat and Bond. So this is paper on one side and there's glue, shiny glue on the other side. You put the wrong side of the fabric against the glue side of the Heat and Bond, and you may want to put some, you can obviously see that I have Heat and Bond on this mat many times because there's little streaks of glue all over the place. So you may want to put a towel or something that you don't care about over your ironing surface so that you can not ruin it like I have. And then you just put a hot iron on the back of the Heat and Bond without the steam. Turn your steam off. I know we all love to steam our seams, but we don't want to steam paper because it gets kind of wrinkly and yucky. If you forget, it's not the end of the world. And just kind of hold it on there. You'll kind of notice that the back of the paper gets a little bit more translucent, or you can see through it a little bit better when that glue melts to the back of the fabric. And then we'll give it a second or two here to cool off, and then I'll show you how you kind of peel the back off. But in the meantime, while we're waiting for that to cool, these are the templates that we're going to cut out. So you want a big flower and then a little flower to go in the middle. So I will cut these out as well. And I'll show you what we do. We're not going to take this Heat and Bond off right now, but I just want to kind of show you what happens. So you can see now that this side has glue on it and it's nice and shiny, and then there's just paper coming off the back. So that's what we do when we put Heat and Bond on our fabric. So let me cut these out and then we'll trace these and I'll show you how I cut them out really easily. I cut these paper templates out with my paper scissors. So I have these kind of old raggedy scissors in my area, and I'm going to cut out, you'll notice that all of my scissors at one time said mom on them. And these scissors always get used by people other than mom. And so I have old scissors that are now paper scissors. I've got scissors that are kind of sort of still cut fabric and are okay for a project like this scissors, because we are cutting through some paper here. So I am a little scared to use my good scissors for fabric on this. So here's my kind of in-between scissors. But anyway, there's my scissor saga. Here we've got the templates cut out, and you will see that they are the size that you can very easily get your 2 flower portions on one layer cake, and you'll be able to get five of these and 5 of these on the back of a fat quarter. So you're obviously not going to want to put this little guy from the same fabric on the middle, but once you get multiple cut out, then you can mix and match and it looks really cute. So, but to make it easy, we're just gonna do 1 flower from each layer cake. So what I do is I just take a pin, any old pin, and I trace around the outside of my template on the fabric side of the, or excuse me, on the paper side of our layer cake. All right, there we go. So there's that. And then we obviously are going to do the same thing with our little guy. And this is a good project for when you're watching TV or doing something mindless, riding in the car. You can take these and then you can just cut them out when you have a little extra time sitting in car line, whatever the case may be. So just like I cut out my templates, I'm going to cut out our little fabric flowers. So while we're on this part of the pattern, I just wanted to let you know, you do not have to use heat and bond for this project. I did not use heat and bond for my first quilt that I made for my niece. So what I did was I took the templates and I just traced on the back of the fabric with a heat erase pen, and I cut out the piecing that way with just fabric. And what I did was I pinned it to the backing fabric and just stitched around it. This is the center, and I pinked these. I don't know if you can see that. It's kind of hard to see put it against the white. So I pinked these edges, which is also an option. You can be really creative with this project. With the heat and bond, the edges really won't fray because they're fused to that glue. But if you want the look of the fabric to fray, which I think would look really cool, like a chrysanthemum or a flower with a bunch of petals, a peony, it would kind of give that ruffling effect of the edge of the fabric, and it would come up a little bit, and I think it would look really neat. So just pin it down, and again, you're going to sew around the edge pretty close. I mean, I'd say just under 1/4 of an inch around the outside of everything on this type of a project with no heat and bond. And then once you get it quilted down and sewn down, the edges will kind of come up a little bit and give it some texture and some ruffle, almost like an old chenille bedspread or something. And I think that this would really be a super cool look without the heat and bond too. Here is our flower cut out, and our other flower. I've already taken the paper backing off of the little one, but we're going to take the paper backing off of the flower now. And then we're going to put the fabric glue side down, kind of centered. I just eyeballed it, you know, make sure that it looks like there's equidistance on all 4 sides. And then you're going to press this down, the flower down, to the background fabric. And what's going to happen when you do that is it's going to stick to the background fabric so that when we stitch this down, it's going to make it really easy. Everything's just going to be held in place. All right, so one thing you'll notice is if you use a dark fabric and then a light fabric on top of it, you will be able to see through that a little bit. That doesn't bother me, but if you want to cut out a background flower with heat and bond in there and make another layer to essentially, it will make this stand out a little more and it won't be as see-through. So I don't know, that might be kind of hard to describe, but if you put a layer of fabric between this piece of fabric and this piece of fabric, and that's cut like the center, it will make the top fabric not be able to see through it. So if that bothers you, that's a way to fix that kind of a deal. But anyway, let's stitch this flower down to the background because this heat and bond is not permanent. We want to make sure that our flowers stick down on our background permanently. So I'll show you a couple different stitches that you might like to use. So on my quilt, since I used a little bit more modern bright colors, I just went around the edge of this with straight stitching. And I'm using white thread so you can see what's going on. I probably would not use white thread. I used pink actually on mine, so you can see it. And I actually think it looks good as a detail on the quilt to use a contrasting color. But these edges will not really fray because of the heat and bond. The heat and bond will maintain a glue on the back side of this that unless you wash and wash and wash and wash it, really will not fray. So that's one option. I think another option that would be cute is the zigzag stitch. So you can just go on one side of the outside of the petal and just zigzag over, and you kind of get an idea of what your machine does with certain stitches. And then just, you know, this is a big enough piece that you just kind of guide it around the edge of the fabric, and then when you turn it with the needle on the inside, and that will allow you just to kind of turn it and keep going. So it'll kind of come out here and then go back, and then off you go again on the other edge. So that's kind of what the zigzag stitch would look like. You could do a satin stitch, which is where it's just basically really thick stitching all around the edge. And that's fine too. I think it looks a little more old-fashioned with applique, but you know, everybody has their preference and it's your quilt, and I think that would look very acceptable. I have one more stitch that I think is really common. It's the blanket stitch, and this stitch is one where it kind of goes around the edge and then it grabs the fabric. Every third stitch will grab the edge of that fabric and kind of hold everything in place. So we'll go around the edge here and see what that looks like after we're done. And don't be afraid to stop and kind of readjust the fabric. You know, if your needle's not where you want it, just pick up your project and move the needle and get it back on track. This does not have to be perfect. So there is the blanket stitch. So that is also an option as well. So I think that one looks really good. So again, you may or may not use white thread with the black fabric, but I think this is going to show up way more than it would on a quilt, and I'll show you mine up close at the end. So really all that is left to do is just piece your blocks together in horizontal rows, and there again, it's really easy to make this quilt exactly the size that you want based on just the number of blocks that you use. So you can see on my stitching, well, it might be a little hard to see, I used pink stitching. Don't you love my dog snorting? She's so funny. But anyway, I've used pink stitching all the way around the edge, all the way in here. and I quilted it with flower quilting. Obviously, I thought that added to the overall feel of the quilt. And this quilt, super happy, super bright colors, really fun. But we also have this project that I started, which is more of a vintage feel, almost like a grandmother's garden quilt kind of feel. You could certainly put this on like a jade or a green background, and that would even add more to that. This is, I believe, Lori Holt Bee Vintage Collection. I don't know that this is still in print, but anyway, I just wanted to show you how different fabric can totally change the feel of a quilt. So this is, like I said, more vintage, and I really love this option as well. Thank you so much for joining me in making Pocket Full of Posies. I hope that a beginner quilter in your life will enjoy this pattern, gain some confidence in making something really beautiful, or it's a wonderful pattern for the more experienced quilter to get something done quickly. I made this quilt top for my niece when she was about 8 or 9 for her birthday, and she absolutely loved it. I also wanted to remind you that we have our sweatshirt pattern. This sweatshirt, along with the applique that says Quilter, is available on our YouTube channel, and the downloads are free. So I'll go ahead and link that video at the end of this video, and you can go ahead and take a look at that and make another project.